Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy. Let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper. These are the topics that we shall be discussing today. But first up, Prelims 2025 results are out. Those who have qualified for the mains examination, congratulations, best of luck for the upcoming mains. But those who did not qualify, who couldn't qualify, who did not manage to reach the main stage, this is a time to introspect. This is a time to reflect on these results. What went wrong? Maybe revision was lacking. Maybe you were unable to take as many marks as possible. Maybe you made mistakes while filling the OMR sheet. Whatever it is time to reflect, introspect, and then decide accordingly whether you should give the next attempt in 2026 or not. And at the same time, don't just look at the negatives. I'm sure there will be some positives that you can take from this experience, from this journey of writing the prelims in 2025. Count on those positives, work upon your negatives, and ultimately you will succeed. And there is no reason why you can't succeed. That's something that I wanted to share with you. Since yesterday, when the results were announced, till today, just before this session, I counted and I received more than 116 mails from students who have qualified for the mains examination. Why I am sharing this with you? Because there is something important. There was one thing in common amongst all these 116 odd candidates. All of them were scoring in excess of 100 in GS. That does not mean that cutoff would be more than 100. We don't know what the cutoff is. But one thing is sure, once your prelims exam is over, then you are matching your answers with the answer keys released by various coaching institutes. If you are scoring 100 plus, psychologically you are assured of a place in the mains examination, which means you will not be wasting your time anxiously waiting for the results. You will directly jump into the mains preparation. So if you're planning to write the exam in 2026 or beyond, please keep one thing in mind. You have to target 100 plus in your GS in the prelims examination so that you are not anxious and anxiously waiting for the results of the prelims examination. Clear? And if you are preparing for 2026 or beyond, and if you want a guidance, if you want a guided program to finish, to complete the syllabus of GS and CSAT in the shortest possible time frame, then Unacademy has decided that for the next 72 hours, our plus subscription for 12 months shall be available at 17,999. Now listen to me carefully. I don't know whether this offer would be extended or not. I'm told that this offer will be valid for the next 72 hours, but it may or may not be extended. But one thing I can give you assurance on is that this subscription fee can never come below 17,999. That I'm confident and sure about. So if you want a guided program to finish your GS and CSAT syllabus and you want to enroll with us, then this is the opportune time for you. Go through our website, check various options, for example, Plus, Iconic. You may see a different price being quoted on the website. But if you apply this code IS English, it will automatically unlock the lowest price available and you can start your civil services preparation journey with us. Let's get started and let's look at article number 1, Recounting Velpur Story in Ending Child Labor. June 12, which is today, each year is celebrated or observed as World Day Against Child Labor under the auspices of the International Labor Organization, ILO. What is the purpose? Purpose is to create awareness against child labor, which is a menace, which is against the dignity of a child. According to Sustainable Development Goal 8.7, the target was that by 2025, all the countries of the world will have to take effective measures to end child labor in all its forms. But according to this writer, in India, we are far from achieving this because child labor is still existent. To understand this article in great detail, We need to understand what is child labor. And according to ILO, a child is somebody who is less than the age of 18 years. Although constitutionally we have a different age point, but according to ILO, any child less than the age of 18 should not be allowed to work in hazardous occupations or those areas where their life and dignity would be in danger. That does not mean that all work done by children should be classified as child labor and the target should be that we have to eliminate this child labor. No. If a child is working and assisting the family business after the school hours or during vacation, this work in a family business will help this child develop skills and which can help him or her lead a better adult life. This is the form of work done by the child which is not considered exploitative and therefore is not under the merit of elimination. Which means, according to ILO, not all forms of work done by a child deserves to be called as child labor and deserves to be eliminated. If you are working after school hours or during vacation and you are being employed in non hazardous occupations and processes, if you're assisting your family business, this is a work which can be encouraged, does not need to be eliminated. Then, what is child labor? Child labor is defined as that work which deprives these children of their childhood and their dignity is under assault. Any form of work which affects the physical and mental well being of a child is worthy of being eliminated. And that is what child labor is defined as by International Labor Organization. You may be asked in your prelims examination about ILO. ILO, which started off in 1919, it is a specialized agency of the United Nations. And one more important fact, it is the only tripartite UN agency. What does that mean? Normally, the agencies of the UN, the membership is confined to governments. That means there are national governments and their representatives who are part of a UN agency. But this ILO is the only tripartite UN agency. Tripartite in the sense that there are government representatives part of this committee, there are workers representatives, there are employers representatives who come together, tripartite, workers, employers, and governments. And together they develop policies, they devise programs through which we can promote decent work amongst men as well as women. This ILO started in 1919 and it was started as part of the Treaty of Versailles. And you would know that it is this Treaty of Versailles which formally ended the World War One. And then the world leaders realized that if we want social justice, if we want lasting peace to be accomplished in the world, that peace has to be founded on the principles of social justice, which means we have to create better working conditions, better environment, decent working conditions for all men and women without any discrimination. Long story short, ILO, which was created in 1919 as part of Treaty of Versailles, this ILO is the only tripartite UN agency, a specialized agency of the United Nations. It defines a child as someone who is less than the age of 18, and not all forms of work done by a child is to be referred to as child labor and deserves to be eliminated. No. But if there is a child work, if there is a work done by the child which affects the dignity of the child, which affects the physical and mental well being of a child, working in hazardous occupations and processes, that deserves to be eliminated. And that is child labor, according to International Labor Organization. If you look at the statistics, child labor is prevalent all across the world, but more specifically in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific regions. And it is more prominent in India as well. If we look at Article 24 of Indian Constitution, which talks about right against exploitation, Article 24 specifically says that all forms of child labor should be abolished. But we say the child is somebody who is less than the age of 14. So the employment of children in hazardous occupations and processes under the age of 14 is prohibited under Article 24 of the Constitution. And to implement this fundamental right, a law was passed by the Indian Parliament in 1986. And that law was the Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act. According to this law, a child who is less than the age of 14 cannot work, cannot be employed in hazardous occupations and processes. But a child less than the age of 14 can work in non hazardous industries and occupations, which means a child less than the age of 14 could have been employed at a roadside dhaba, could have been employed as a domestic help, could have been employed in non hazardous occupations and processes. But then this law would also come in conflict with a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution under Article 21, capital A, which says all children in the age group of 6 to 14, you have a fundamental right to free compulsory primary education. So, if there is a fundamental right to primary education for all children under the age of 14, doesn't this law come in conflict with this fundamental right? Because this law allows child labor in non hazardous industries and occupations under the age of 14. That is why this law was amended in the year 2016. And according to this amendment in 2016, now child labor is prohibited. Prohibited in which category? All the children who are below the age of 14, they cannot be employed anywhere. Whether it is hazardous or non-hazardous occupation doesn't matter. There is a blanket ban on the employment of children below the age of 14. But there are exceptions. Exceptions in the sense that these children can work, can assist in their family business. These children can be employed in audio visual entertainment industry. But a child under the age of 14 can assist their family in the family business, provided this family business is not hazardous. But you need to also ensure that you do not interfere with the schooling of this child, which is in line with the ILO. You can be employed in non hazardous family businesses, you can assist your family, or you can work in audio visual entertainment industry as child artists, except circus, because circus is considered to be exploitative. But you need to ensure that it does not affect the schooling of this child. So you can be employed in audio visual entertainment industry or in family business only after school hours or during vacation. This is in line with the International Labor Organization. But for the first time, this child labor law, which was amended in 2016, also talks about another group of children in the age group of 14 to 18. And these are whom we call adolescents. These adolescents are prohibited from being employed in hazardous occupations. So, children below the age of 14 cannot be employed except in family business or in audio visual entertainment industry except circus. And a child whom we call adolescents who are in the age group of 14 to 18, they cannot be employed. They are prohibited from being employed in hazardous occupations, but they can be employed and their work will be regulated in non hazardous occupations and processes. The best thing about this law, which was amended in 2016, was that for the first time, we were also talking about children who are in the age group of 14 to 18, whom we call adolescents. They cannot be employed in hazardous occupations, but they can be employed in non hazardous occupations and processes. But even then, child labor is still persistent in India. And this child labor is prevalent. And the biggest reason for that is poverty. We have seen instances where, because of the COVID 19 lockdown, when the children were enrolled in the school, but then the schools were shut, they started working. And after the COVID 19 got over, when the reopening of the economy took place, reopening of the schools took place, some of these children, they did not go back to the schools. So they were enrolled, then dropped out, and now they have not come back, even after the schools have opened. And the primary reason for that is poverty, because these children are forced into labor, maybe by their families as well, because of the incidence of poverty. So, unless and until this underlying condition of poverty is uprooted, we will not be in a position to eliminate child labor. But then, do we have a case study which we can employ to check this menace of child labor and eradicate it altogether? That's the crux of this article written by Mr. Ashok Kumar, who is a former IAS officer. He talks about a Velpur model. Velpur is a mandal, a tehsil in the undivided Andhra Pradesh, and now it is part of Telangana. And this area, this mandal, was notorious for child labor. But then something happened. Efforts were taken, and because of these efforts, in the year 2001, this mandal was declared as child labor free mandal. And 25 years later, even today, the retention in the schools is 100%. How did we reach to this state where this mandal was notorious for child labor and now it is child labor free and there is 100% retention and enrollment of students? How did we make it happen so that we can replicate this model everywhere else in India as well? This started off with a campaign which was launched by the bureaucrats, which was launched by the civil servants. They identified which are these areas where children are absent from the schools and not enrolled in the schools and they are employed in child labor. Tracking all these families and their children, identifying them, and then convincing them that you have to enroll your kids in the schools. According to this writer, they faced a lot of objection, resistance from the people as well, because some canards were thrown. In a sense, they were accused of being involved in child trafficking. You want our children, but not for education, but you want to traffic their liver or their kidneys or their eyes as well. So, this is not an awareness for education. This is something that is a deep rooted racket for organ transplantation or organ donation, illegal organ donation. But because of the persistent efforts by these civil servants and then community leaders as well, efforts were made and students were enrolled in the schools and then they were retained there as well. The most striking feature of this is involvement of Panchayati Raj institution. So Panchayati Raj institution, they signed a memorandum of understanding with the government. And this is something which has happened for the first time in 2001. They signed a memorandum of understanding with the government saying we will ensure that all our children in the age group of 5 to 14, they will be enrolled in the schools and we will ensure their retention. So when you have committed bureaucrats who track and identify these children who are out of the schools, then you convince the community leaders that you create awareness amongst the community and ensure that children are enrolled in the schools and then retained there. This is the model which needs to be replicated everywhere. But, sir, you said that child labor is because of poverty, because of the incidence of poverty. These children who were employed as child laborers in this Velpur Tehsil or Mandal, the parents of these kids, they had taken loans from the employers. And to repay these loans, these parents offered their children. Sometimes wages were not provided, but meals were provided. So The payment was in the form of meals to these children. And then the loan which was provided to their family members, these family members will repay these loans by offering these their children as child laborers. You may have heard of trolling. In one way, trolling is good. These employers, because of the community pressure, because of the peer pressure, they were trolled into writing off these loans. And what these employers did, although voluntarily some and some involuntarily, but somehow pressure was put on them. There was enormous peer pressure, there was enormous trolling, although this term was not prevalent then. And because of which, these employers, they wrote off 35 lakh worth of loans given to these parents. And all of this was for a good cause. And this is what is required: community participation. And this should metamorphosize into a movement. For example, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan would not have been successful if it would not have been translated into a mass movement. So you need to involve everybody, community leaders, Panchayati Raj institutions. Everybody should be on board. And that is how you can create a mass movement. And that is reflected that even today in Velpur, there is 100% school enrollment and retention of the children. And that is a model that we need to follow throughout the country if we need to eradicate the menace of child labor. And that is what we observe every June 12 under the auspices of International Labor Organization, the World Day Against Child Labor. So this case study can be important for your mains examination. On this, there is a question on your screen. Community-led models can play a transformative role in combating child labor, especially where the state interventions fall short. Critically analyze the statement with reference to the Velpur model in Telangana. Also suggest how such models can be scaled and sustained across India. Write an answer to this question in 250 words. Let's look at another editorial: bad blood. India and Canada must use every opportunity to reset ties. If you look at Canada and India, there is something in common between both the countries. Both these countries are parliamentary democracies. Both these countries are part of Commonwealth. And Commonwealth, you would know, although it's a colonial term, Commonwealth, all the erstwhile British colonies, which are now independent, they are together part of Commonwealth. So both India and Canada, they are parliamentary democracies. They've been part of the Commonwealth. And in fact, in India, our constitution has borrowed a lot of provisions from the Canadian constitution. Which are these provisions? Canada, such as India, is also a federation, is also a federal polity. But this federal polity has a strong center. That is what we call centralizing tendency of federalism. Despite the fact that we are a federal polity, but our federal polity is biased in favor of a strong center. Center has more powers as compared to the states. And this is the model that we have borrowed from the Canadian Constitution. Similarly, appointment of governors, governors to states, provinces are appointed by the central government. This is also a provision that we have borrowed from the Canadian Constitution, although this is a provision that was also part of the Government of India Act 1935. Third, residuary powers. If there are some items which are not mentioned in the union list or state list or concurrent list, that means it's a residue. These residuary powers in United States are vested with the states, but in India and Canada, these are vested with the center. Similarly, recently you might have encountered presidential reference under Article 143. That is also something that we have borrowed from the Canadian Constitution. So India and Canada, they share some commonality in the form of both are parliamentary democracies, both are part of the Commonwealth. Indian Constitution has borrowed some provisions from the Canadian Constitution. And in fact, in 1947, when we became independent, Canada recognized India's independence and established diplomatic relations with India. Embassies were set up in each other's country. And then this relationship also flourished. And you would know Candu reactors. The designs of these Candu reactors were shared by Canada with India in the 1960s. Canada, deuterium, and uranium, these reactors, the designs of these reactors were shared with India by Canada. But then in 1974, because of Smiling Buddha, when we conducted nuclear test at Pokhran in 1974, this nuclear test was codenamed, or this program was codenamed as Smiling Buddha. This is where the relationship between India and Canada deteriorated. And then Canada also started supporting the Khalistani extremists. Who are these Khalistani extremists? In Punjab, a movement was launched where some people thought and felt that we deserve a separate state for Sikhs, separate country, a sovereign country for Sikhs, and that we would name as Khalistan. When people from Punjab started migrating to Canada for better opportunities, because if there is one thing which is very important between India and Canada, it is Indian diaspora in Canada. 1.86 million Indians or Indian diaspora, they are settled in Canada. A large number of them are from Punjab area. So when Punjabis, Sikhs predominantly, migrated to Canada, there they started their campaign for a separate independent country for Sikhs known as Khalistan. So India's testing nuclear weapon in 1974, Smiling Buddha, and then Canada's support to these Khalistani extremists, this is what led to deterioration of the relationship between the two countries. But then when India liberalized its economy, when the LPG reforms were carried out in 1991 under the directions of the IMF, International Monetary Fund, when these reforms were carried out, India became a bigger economy, a bigger market for the global world. And this is where Canada started investing in India as well, and the relationship flourished over a period of time. But then this relationship also struggled, deteriorated when Justin Trudeau was the Prime Minister of Canada. In fact, once when Justin Trudeau visited India, he was not given a good welcome in India as well because he was making statements favoring the farmer protests of 2020. When the farmers in Punjab, in Haryana, Western UP started protesting against the three farm laws which were enacted by the Indian Parliament. Support to the Khalistani activists, rallies were organized in Canada by the radical Khalistanis against the Indian embassy as well. And these rallies were not stopped by the Canadian government, headed by Justin Trudeau. And then the trigger came when a Khalistani separatist, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, he was assassinated in Canada. Although Nijjar was a Canadian citizen, but he was a Khalistani supporter, he was part of the Indian diaspora. Canada alleged, without any proof, that India is responsible for carrying out these attacks and killing and assassinating Canadian citizens on our soil. And in fact, when Canadian police carried out investigation, they even named the Honorable Home Minister, Union Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, as an accused in ordering the killing of Niger. And that led to the diplomatic standoff between India and Canada. And both the countries lowered the strength of their diplomatic staff in each other's countries. But thankfully, Justin Trudeau is now out. He is no longer the Prime Minister. And we have a new Prime Minister in Canada. And this Prime Minister, Mr. Mark Carney, has now invited Prime Minister Modi to be part of the G7 summit. Although India is not a part of G7, but he is but the government of India, the Prime Minister, has been invited to attend the meetings of G7. So this editorial says, although nothing dramatic can be expected from Mr. Modi traveling to Canada for the first time in the last decade, but this is a beautiful opportunity. We must encash this opportunity, and this should be used as an opportunity to reset the ties between India and Canada, which deteriorated when Justin Trudeau was the Prime Minister of Canada. For that, there are two things which can be important for your prelims examination. One is G7. What is G7? G7 is the grouping of seven major IMF economies of the world. Can you name these seven G7 countries? One is United States, the other is Canada. From Asia, there is Japan. From Europe, we have UK, we have France, we have Germany, and we have Italy. These seven countries are part of group of seven. These are the seven major IMF economies of the world. But please keep in mind that this G7 grouping is not created by any treaty, does not have any secretariat either. Yet it is very powerful. Normally, when international organizations are created or regional international organizations are created, there is a treaty which creates, or there's a charter which creates these organizations. For example, UN, for example, ASEAN, for example, SAARC, for example, European Union, created by charters or treaties, and they have a secretariat. But this G7, it's an informal group of seven major IMF economies, but this was not created through a treaty. That was not created. This does not have even a secretariat. And Russia was also part of this grouping till 2014. And this is when it was referred to as G8 economies. Now, Russia was suspended because in 2014, Russia annexed Crimea. And because of this crime, Russia was suspended from G8. Because of it, G8 became G7. And then Russia said, we no longer want to be part of G7. Although there were efforts to bring in Russia back into this fold, but as of now, it has not materialized. So G7 can be important for your prelims examination. Something else is important, and that is what we call five eyes. Why five eyes? Because when Niger was assassinated and Justin Trudeau's government wrongly, without any basis, unsubstantiated allegations that Indian government is responsible for assassinating Niger, Canada says that we have shared this intelligence with Five Eyes. What is this Five Eyes? It is an intelligence sharing alliance. And who are part of this Five Eyes? You need to know the number, you need to know the members. There is US, there is Canada. And then in Australia and New Zealand. And you should remember, wherever there is United States, there is UK as well. So these five countries together form this intelligence sharing alliance. They share intelligence with each other. That is why we call them Five Eyes. And the origin of this Five Eyes dates back to 1941 during World War II. What happened during World War II? There is United States, there is UK, there is Germany, and there is Japan. Japan and Germany are together. United States and UK are together. Although at this point, US had not formally joined the World War II. But both these countries, they were working together, sharing intelligence with each other, sharing information with each other, and they wanted to break the encrypted communication system of Germany and Japan, because they would communicate with each other through encrypted communication systems. For example, Japan had something called purple codes. Germany had Enigma code. US and UK collaborated with each other, shared information, intelligence with each other, and broke this encrypted communication system, broke the purple and the Enigma codes, and helped each other in defeating these countries in the World War II. But once the World War II got over, in 1946, these countries felt another need, that we have had an ally who is now our adversary. And that ally is, or now adversary is, Joseph Stalin. It was alleged that Soviet Union has taken away, gotten away with some of the intricate nuclear secrets, secrets about the nuclear weapon programs of US and UK. And now they wanted to come together and expand this intelligence sharing agreement with other countries so that they can tackle the Soviet Union, Stalin's Soviet Union. And that is how Five Eyes was born. So what is Five Eyes? What is G7? These facts related to these entities can also be important for your prelims examination. Which brings us to another editorial, Connecting Bridge. The rail link will bring Kashmir closer to the rest of India. You might have heard of this phrase, Kashmir se Kanyakumari tak, from Kashmir till Kanyakumari. This is an expression which is used to denote the geographical expanse of India. The northernmost point, Kashmir, and the southernmost tip of India, the Kanyakumari. And now, literally, Kashmir to Kanyakumari has now been connected because a rail bridge has been constructed by the Indian Railways. And that is the Chenab rail link. Why is this significant? If you are preparing for state level exams or other government exams, there are some facts related to this Chenab rail bridge which can be important for your exam. Facts such as it is 35 meters higher than the Eiffel Tower. It is the world's highest railway arch bridge. Because look at this area in the Chenab region. Railway was existing till Jammu. Steps were taken by the Indira Gandhi's government in the 1970s to bring rail connectivity to Kashmir as well. But it got delayed for a long period of time because of various reasons. Funding was a very important reason. But then this rail network got extended to Banihal. But then from Banihal to Kashmir, there was an issue. Why? Because this is an area which is a seismic zone. This is an area where the winds are traveling in hundreds of kilometers. This is an area where we have cliffs, we have deep gorges, and it requires engineering marvel to establish some connectivity between the two regions. And look at this region. And that is how this arched railway bridge was constructed using steel, and it is expected that this bridge will last 120 years. And it can withstand wind speeds to the tune of 260 kilometers an hour. And then this railway bridge will be used to for the rail to pass from one area to another. And through this, Kashmir will be now connected to the rest of the country because there was a break. There was railway line in Kashmir, but this connectivity with Jammu and then from Jammu to Delhi would not have been possible if this world's highest railway bridge was not constructed by the Indian Railway. Although not important for your exam, but just to tell you, it will now cut the time travel from Kashmir to Delhi, which previously would take more than 24 hours, to half of it. Now, in 13 hours, people from Kashmir can travel via rail to Delhi in 13 hours, which also means that better connectivity, because this is part of your GS paper 3 as well. Infrastructure is part of your GS paper 3 syllabus. Rail connectivity will boost investment and may also play a very important role in militancy torn economy of Jammu and Kashmir, particularly the valley, because valley was cut off from the rest of the country because there was no direct rail connectivity. Now that has been solved, and this editorial praises the government and says Mr. Modi has rightly described this rail link as a symbol of new and empowered Jammu and Kashmir. That is what you need to understand from this editorial. Okay, now let's look at another column, a different approach to caste census. Census, which is supposed to be a decadal exercise, supposed to be conducted every 10 years. Last, it was meant to be conducted in 2021, but it got delayed, postponed because of COVID-19 pandemic. Now the government has decided, because census is a subject under union list, the responsibility of conducting the census is squarely with the central government. Census, which was meant to be conducted in 2021, got delayed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And now, according to the government, it will be conducted and will be concluded by 2027. But apart from that, a significant decision was taken by Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs. And what is this Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs? You would know that there are 8 cabinet committees, and 6 of these cabinet committees are chaired by the Prime Minister. There is a Cabinet Committee on Accommodation, which is chaired by the Honorable Home Minister. And there is a Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs. This Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs is chaired by the Defense Minister. Previously, it would be chaired by the Home Minister. Now it is chaired by the Defense Minister. Apart from these two, all these 6 other cabinet committees are chaired by the Prime Minister. One such committee is Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs, which is also considered to be a super cabinet. In fact, this was once a question asked in your prelims examination. Which of the following cabinet committees is also referred to as a super cabinet? And that is Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs. All the important political decisions are taken by this committee, chaired by the Prime Minister. And what is the political decision that they have taken? Is that for the first time in the history of independent India, caste data will also be captured. That means caste census will be integral part of this census exercise. What do we mean by that caste census? The census exercise, which was carried out every decade in India, would also include data such as what is the literacy rate in the country, population figures, what is the marital status, what is the economic status, what is the fertility age of women, fertility rate of the women. But it would also capture data related to SCs and STs so that we can have an idea what is the proportion of our population who belong to SCs or STs. But what about castes other than SCs and STs, the OBCs? We don't know what their number is. There have been demands from various state governments that we should identify other backward castes as well so that we can decide how to better empower them, how to better create programs, policies, interventions to better uplift them, because data is the key. And this Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs has now decided that we will also be enumerating castes, other backward castes, in the census, which will conclude in 2027. And this article says that this caste census should not be viewed in binaries, that I am in favor of caste census or I am against this caste census, but it should be viewed in terms of governance as a social management approach. So we have to view this caste census as a social management approach to governance. How? Listen to me carefully. Bihar government decided that we will conduct a caste census. Because census is under the union list, how can Bihar government conduct a census? That is why they changed the name and they said it is not caste census, it is caste survey. We want to survey what is the proportion of different castes in Bihar so that we can identify them and make policies which are tailor made for these communities. And when this caste survey was done in Bihar, we realized that more than 63% of the population of Bihar is made up of backward classes. Telangana also did the same thing. They did the caste survey and they realized that there are 56 or 57% of the population in Telangana is also made up of the backward class. So, if this is the proportion of backward classes within our population, then what is the representation of them in politics, in education, in government jobs? We should also get to know about that. According to this article, as the data which is shared by Union Minister of State for Education, in all the 45 central universities in India, only 4% of the professors and 6% of the associate professors are OBCs, despite the fact that there is a reservation. And majority of them belong to the general category. Once we have the data from the Bihar survey, from the Telangana survey, Karnataka also has done a similar exercise. Once we have this data, we realize that in India, marginalized communities, they are in majority, but they lack representation in politics, in employment, and in education. And for that, we need caste data. And that is what these writers say will be a social management approach to governance. And what is the social management approach to governance? First, we will look at the data. Then, this data, once it is collected, we will have a beautiful picture of different caste groups and what is their representation in politics, what is their representation in educational institutions, what is their representation in government jobs, and whether some schemes which we have implemented, whether it is reaching them or not. So we have a housing scheme in the form of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, whether it is targeted at these marginalized communities or not, or someone else is taking the benefit, reaping the benefit. For example, allegation is that there are Minas in Rajasthan who are scheduled tribes. Scheduled tribe is viewed as a homogeneous group, and within this group there are Minas. And Minas pocket most of the benefits in terms of reservation in educational institutions and in public employment. This is where there was a demand that state governments should be empowered to subcategorize the STs and SCs. Subcategorize, that means within STs, if there is one dominant group which is pocketing the benefit of the reservation system, it means this dominant group within this ST group is blanking out others who are also worthy of reservation. Can we subcategorize them? And Supreme Court said in a landmark case, Devender versus State of Punjab 2024, that state governments have the power that you can subcategorize these SCs and STs. Because SCs and STs should not be treated as a homogeneous group. Within SCs and STs, there are various castes, and we have to identify these castes and see their representation in educational institutions and in public employment, and then accordingly decide whether their representation is proportionate to their population or disproportionate to their population. As Rahul Gandhi would say, jitni abadi utna hak. As is the population, as should be the right of that community in government jobs, in educational institutions. And that we will come to know if there is a caste wide census conducted across the country, because without this data, we will not be in a position to have a beautiful, upright, potential figure about inequalities in our society. So, according to this article, we should not be looking at caste census in terms of binaries that we are in favor or we are against, but we should look at it from an approach of governance called social management approach. And what is the social management approach? We will look at the data first. And then this data, through this data, we will have target based interventions. And the beautiful thing that will happen because of this caste census, we won't be treating caste as a stigma, but we would be treating caste as a developmental variable. Which particular caste group is at the bottom of the diplomatical developmental pyramid, so that it needs to be updated, so that it needs to be upgraded, so that it needs more policy interventions, so that it can also be uplifting itself. So caste, instead of being viewed as a stigma, will have to be viewed as a developmental variable, and that will go a long way in creating an egalitarian society of India. That is the crux of this article. Here, let's look at the last column for today's discussion. Violent crimes by juveniles have increased in India. December 2012, if I recall the date correctly, December 16, 2012, Nirbhaya was gang raped in a moving bus in Delhi. When she, along with her partner, along with her friend, they went to watch a movie. Then they were coming back and they were assaulted in a moving bus in Delhi. And this rape was a gang rape. It was carried out in such a horrific manner that it even that one accused, convicted, inserted an iron rod into the private parts of Nirbhaya, which ruptured her intestines as well. Long story short, one accused was a juvenile. And who is a juvenile? Somebody who is less than the age of 18. At that time, there was a law called Juvenile Justice Act. And that law said if a juvenile who is less than the age of 18 has committed any crime, we cannot be treating this juvenile like an adult. We cannot try this juvenile like we try adults in court cases. Even if this juvenile is guilty, we can sentence him, but maximum sentence can be 3 years. That too, not in a regular jail, but in a reform home. So, one of the accused in the Nirbhaya gang rape was a juvenile who was few months short of 18 years of age, and now he is out. All others have been hanged because they were adults. But this juvenile was not hanged. He was sentenced to 3 years in a reform home, and after that, he was released because he was few months short of 18 years. And as a juvenile, we cannot be trying you like an adult. We cannot be sentencing you to a jail term. Then there was a massive campaign launched in the aftermath of the Nirbhaya gang rape that if there is a juvenile who is old enough to rape, he should be old enough to hang as well. Then, because of this campaign, the Juvenile Justice Act was amended in the year 2015. And now, this amended law says if there is a juvenile who is in the age group of 16 to 18 years, and this juvenile has carried out a heinous crime, this juvenile can be tried as an adult. Can be tried as an adult, but we cannot be giving him death sentence if he is guilty. No death sentence, but can be given life imprisonment. But what are these heinous crimes? Those crimes are heinous crimes for which the minimum punishment is 7 years. So if there is a juvenile in the age group of 16 to 18 who is accused of committing a heinous crime, and what is a heinous crime? That crime for which the minimum punishment prescribed by law, whether it is Indian Penal Code or the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, is 7 years or more. And if you're accused of a heinous crime, then Juvenile Justice Board will decide whether you should be tried as an adult or not. That is what we call juvenile. Somebody who is below the age of 18 in the age group of 16 to 18. And according to this article, Violent crimes by juveniles has increased in India. If you are a subscriber of Netflix, you may have watched or you may be aware of a British miniseries called Adolescence, which talks about a boy who killed his classmate. Then there is another series, Bad Boy, which is an Israeli series on similar patterns on Netflix. I'm not encouraging you to watch these series, but I'm just telling you if you are a subscriber of Netflix, maybe you're aware of Adolescence and you're aware of the Bad Boy. This Adolescence, which is a British miniseries, it tells the chilling story of a 13-year-old boy who murders his classmate. This Adolescence has generated a lot of positive review because of its storytelling, because of the performance of the characters, because of the way it is shot. Technically, it is considered to be a masterpiece. But it has also generated a lot of interest and commentary in UK and in other parts of the world related to cyberbullying. Not just cyberbullying, also raised an issue regarding incel. Incel is a portmanteau, means a combination of two words: involuntary celibate or celibacy. There are celibates who abstain from sexual relationship, who abstain from marriage, but that is voluntary. They do it voluntarily. These are what we call celibates. Then there is involuntary celibacy. There are heterosexual men who want sexual relationship, but they are unable to get it. And who do they blame? They blame the women for the lack of romantic relationship in their lives. So this incel is considered to be a pejorative term which is seeped in misogyny. So this mini series on Netflix, Adolescence, is not only about juvenile delinquency, is not only about juveniles committing crimes. It has also raised concerns, debates over cyberbullying, over incel, because there are these men who are sexually deprived and they blame women for their sexual deprivation. It's basically a misogynist term. If we look at data throughout the world, there is a juvenile who has committed a crime. This crime can be a heinous crime. This crime can be a non heinous crime, serious crime. If we look at juveniles who have been apprehended for violent crimes throughout the world, if 100 juveniles have committed crime, in United States, 32.6 of them have committed violent crime. If 100 juveniles have committed a crime in India, 44.9 of them have committed a violent crime. Violent crime in the form of rape, in the form of dacoity, in the form of murder. So there is a rise in juvenile delinquency, but there is a rise of violent crimes committed by juveniles. This data can be important for your mains answers, mains pointers. If you look at state wise, Madhya Pradesh tops the list. That means if there are 100 crimes committed by juveniles, 100 violent crimes committed by juveniles, we will see majority of them would be committed in Madhya Pradesh, followed by Maharashtra, followed by Rajasthan. And where has this data been extracted from? From National Crime Records Bureau. Because it is this National Crime Records Bureau, which is managed by the Home Ministry, which takes a look at all the crimes which have taken place in this country. And we will have a snapshot of all the crimes committed in India in this data, in this database called National Crime Records Bureau. These data points, please note them, can be important pointers, value addition for your mains answers. And look at the question on your screen. Controlling, controlling juvenile delinquency requires a multi-pronged preventive, rehabilitative, and participatory approach involving families, schools, communities, and the state. If there are juveniles who are resorting to crimes, whether violent crimes or serious crimes, how do we tackle them? For that, we need a mass awareness. For that, we need a multi pronged approach. Yes, we need to prevent these crimes from taking place. But after the crimes have taken place, we need to rehabilitate these juveniles as well. Because once they are properly reformed, rehabilitated, they can be good members of the society as well. And for that, we need the participation of families so that they can keep a track on their kids. What are their kids watching on mobile phones? Who are their kids interacting with? Are they indulging in drugs? Check their bags once they come from school. And don't tell me this is violation of their privacy, because this is for their benefit, and right to privacy is not an absolute fundamental right. And in any case, you can't get your fundamental rights enforced against your parents. So we need the participation of families. Keep a track on your kids, particularly your boys. What are they doing? Who are they interacting with online? Are they indulging in drugs and other activities? Are they attending the schools regularly or bunking the schools? So we need the participation of families, schools as well, because most of the time kids spend in the schools. So teachers should be trained to better keep a track of the student. And we need communities as well, because after the school hours, the kids may be wandering in the communities, in the colonies, in the parks. This is where we need not the bullying of these people, not the moral policing of these people, but we need to keep a track if they resort to antisocial activities. But just because a boy and a girl are walking together in a park, you should not stop them in the garb of moral policing. So, community participation, and then the state will have to ensure that we reform these individuals who have resorted to these crimes. And that is the approach that we need to follow. Multi pronged approach, which has to border on welfare, reform, rehabilitation. That is the need of the hour. And that is it from our newspaper analysis for today. Thank you so much for staying with me. Again, I will reiterate towards the end, should you wish to enroll with us and start your civil services preparation with us, please utilize this opportunity. Now, whether you want to join or not, that's your call. But if you want to join, please use this opportunity. I'm told that this offer is ending in 72 hours. I don't know whether this offer will be extended or not, but I know for sure that the price, which is 17,999, will not come below this. So this is the most affordable learning program currently available. Should you wish to enroll, please do that. Go to our website, check various options, plus, iconic, platinum, whatever it is, and use this code so that you can get the maximum discount on your subscription. I'll see you when I see you. Till then, have a great time. All the best.